Hello, welcome to the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. I'm your host, Lord Chamberlain of the Enchanted Kingdom, Zip Gun, and I'm here in the Turret of Pleasure, listening to music, talking about records. Records today. Yeah, vinyl, I know. I kind of don't talk much about vinyl because vinyl doesn't obsess me. I like it though, and it's stuff, I was into vinyl, of course, when it was the only thing around, and got excited about it. But when CDs came along, I thought they sounded better, so I buy CDs now. But I started thinking about CD reissues and stuff that was starting to get reissued. And so I was going to start talking about the 60s Avant Garde. Because I got into the 60s Avant Garde when I was quite young, like maybe 14 or so. And I bought a lot of records back then that were fairly easily available here, even in Victoria, BC, that previous to this age would have been very hard for a normal person to get, unless they were in, Europe or in some inner circle of people. And for whatever reason, and I've never really been able to figure it out exactly, some of the major labels in classical music in Europe, which was still very powerful and popular, decided to think outside of the box a little bit. And they set up series, sort of sub-labels, if you will, where they would explore the absolute outer reaches of the musical avant-garde, which in the 60s was about as out there as music really ever got. And so they left this lovely, wonderful legacy of a lot of really good records. And I'm going to talk about two of the series that I've got a few of that are fun to talk about. And the first one I'm going to talk about, because it's one I've had the longest, is the Deutsche Grammophon Avant Garde series. Now, these were 4-box sets. Sadly, I only have 3 of them and 4 of the 6 from the first one as singles. Now, back in the good old days, these were available either as singles or as boxes. Much more commonly, they were sold as singles. The boxes, this is volume 2, have this great design. All the covers are related. I'm not sure if I can show this properly, but they all had different color schemes. I always fantasize about painting my bedroom like this. And, really good presentation. And it is these are from the mid to late 60s, 68 maybe. And there is some pretty cool stuff in these, like Karlheinz Stockhausen doing Telemusik and Mixture, which I think Telemusik he did in Japan, didn't he? Some interesting people that you won't run into again. Gottfried Michael Koenig, Zoltan Pondrash, and Rainer Rhein. Now, if I know, this is electronic music, I do believe. Yeah. Producer Karl Faust. I'm not sure who Karl Faust is, but he gets a tip of the hat. Mauricio Kegel doing Hallelujah. And I think this is some crazy choir music. Mauricio Kegel was a great Argentine avant-garde composer. John Cage doing Atlas Ellipticalis, winter music, cartridge music. Again, now who does this? This was part of they sort of had an English component, Deutsche Grammophon, and I think this was done in England. The amazing Gruppe Nuova Consonanza, which featured Franco Evangelisti and none other than Ennio Morricone on trumpet. And this was a truly avant-garde, free improvising group that were really cool. I bought this record when I was about 12 or 13, and it was so weird, and I loved it. And Bernd Alwan Zimmermann doing some chamber music, which is really great. Now, these people are all pretty important members of the European avant-garde in the last half of the 20th century. But they've never really been available to the general public. And so I'd love to know how these sold. Now, I'm going to guess that they might have been budget, but I don't know. And the reason I say this is volume 3. What's on volume 3? Sadly, you cannot read the spines. This was a bit of an oversight. They should have put the print in white. But, you know, maybe there was a deadline. So we got another Maurizio Kegel. Luke Ferrari, Prisk Rain #1. Luke Ferrari is very popular with many hipsters nowadays. We have a great string quartet record by the LaSalle Quartet, doing Ligeti's second, Earl Brown's string quartet, and a guy named Rolf Rosenberg, his third quartet. Now, I don't know Rosenberg, and I don't remember a lot about this one. Another Stockhausen record, Stimmung for four vocalists, which is his piece for 4 singers. A guy named Roland Kane doing Cybernetics 3, and Luigi Nono doing the absolutely wonderfully entitled Dialectic Counterpoint of the Mind. What's not to like? Lucas Foss and Legeren Hiller. Legeren Hiller is an interesting character. Anyway, these are all absolutely super interesting. They are just, they're not trying to be commercial. They're not trying to do anything. They're just saying to these guys, you know, do your thing and we'll put it out. And this was distributed, at least for some period of time, in Canada by Polydor, who did Deutsche Grammophon. Now, this is my favorite for a couple of reasons. This was the one I bought first. And I bought this. This is volume 4. It's the last volume. It's different from the other 3 volumes in that these were not available separately. At least not to my knowledge. I never saw them available separately. I saw all these other ones separately. And in fact, I bought some of them separately. This one, of course, has slightly different design. But again, the colors change. Heinz Holliger and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen Spiral for a soloist, featuring Heinz Holliger as the soloist. This is a really, really, really good record. This was the first time I knew that Heinz Holliger was a composer. I just knew him as an oboist. We have Silvanio Bissotti, another really interesting Italian Marxist, you know. We have Roman Habenstock-Ramati, Vinko Globokar, who is I think he's Slovenian. I'm wearing the jersey of the Slovenian team today. Globokar is another pretty well-known Eastern European avant-gardist. We have Franco Evangelisti, The Box, and another Heinz Holliger piece called The Magical Dancer. This is also a really, 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 really cool record. And so cool I bought a reissue of that I'll talk in another video. We have the obligatory electronic one, which features the unforgettable Electro Poem, composition by a guy named Leo Cooper. Now, what it is, it says here, 12 voix de jeunes filles et garçons. What I do think they're trying to tell me is there's 12 mixed vocalists all making mouth noises for 6 minutes. I've sampled this so many times I've lost count. And the absolute gem here is Cornelius Cardew, The Great Learning, a legendary piece by the Scratch Orchestra, which featured amongst its members a guy named Brian Eno. And this is 2 of the paragraphs of The Great Learning. I don't know if they ever recorded all of them. Cardew was a very well-known Marxist, hard Marxist composer in Britain who died mysteriously, it was said. There was some conjecture that MI5 knocked him off for reasons, I don't know what threat to national security a Marxist avant-garde composer would have, but you never know. And yeah, so these came out, and there were, I don't know if anything else came with the avant-garde thing, but they did a lot of Stockhausen. They did a lot of Kegel. They did a lot of Luigi Nono. They did a lot of, you know, they kept it up. They really didn't just give it lip service. And at almost the same time, their rivals in Holland at Philips decided, well, we should get into the avant-garde. And those crafty Dutch, actually, I don't think it was the Dutch, because these are all French. They're all from Philips, France. And these are pretty similar, except that there was no box sets or nothing like that. These all just came out individually. And they have the added attraction for guys like me of having these amazing covers. And I forget the term for these covers. There's a term for it. And the really cool ones are silver backs with black print on them. Now, a lot of them are by Le Percussion de Strasbourg, which was an avant-garde percussion ensemble, not surprisingly from Strasbourg. Pierre from the band Gong played in them for a while. And there's a lot of them on this that are done by this group. No doubt they were cheap to record. You know, these records probably weren't very expensive to make. They get a photo, unless you, well, at least these covers maybe. So look at these covers, Japanese electronic music. Now this is an older one, and you can tell because it has a paper back, and the cover is more thick. These are the thin. This is right about the time covers went thin. They got the green Philips label, which is really cool. Cool label. And I think these were all made in France. I think this was an initiative of French Philips. Here we have Pierre Oris La Voyage, which I bought again when I was about maybe 15 or 14. And I seem to remember these being cheap. At least they were cheap. I bought these and that box, the purple one, at a place called the Record Gallery in Victoria. Long gone. The building is gone. Everything's gone. The guy that owned it died. He was a rugby player. Died in the middle of a rugby game. And he wasn't a particularly friendly guy, but he had a great record store. The great Elizabeth Choshnaka, doing some cool stuff here. We got Ligeti, we got Clementi, we got Barrio, Marius Constant, some guys I haven't heard of. Now this series was great because there were a lot of different composers, and there some French composers. Here's Vision Cosmique, Jean Guyot, Improvisation, Silverback. You wonder how hard it is to make these covers. Ivo Malik, who is was he Croatian maybe? He would have been known as the Yugoslavian composer. Silverback, look at that, eh? And here's the curveball, of course, is the one that doesn't have anything, it's just colored. There you go. Tona Shershin, Alain Louvier, and Georges Apergy. I have not heard of any of these guys. So there you go. And that's another percussion to Strasbourg. And the last one is a percussion to Strasbourg. And again, 3 composers I've not heard of. Soroki, Silvestrov, and Puy. These are all really pretty cool. They're all very well recorded, pretty decently recorded anyway. And back in the day when I could pick them up for cheap, I'd jump on them anywhere I found them. Now, they're basically, I don't know. It looks like they're a lot like $70 a piece if you buy them on Discogs, which is too bad. I would love it if the evil Universal Musical Group would put a box set of these out on CD. That would be, but that ain't gonna happen. Anyway, which brings me to the last one. Now, you remember I mentioned my good friend Brian Eno. Well, he's not my friend. He doesn't know me. But I've been a fan of Mr. Eno for a while. And while not everything he has done in the last 30 years has turned my crank, I'll listen to everything once. And he got the bright idea back in the day, I'm not sure, I'd love to know the actual story about this, of starting his own little label to help promote new music in Britain, or avant-garde music, if you will. And so he started the Obscure label. And through thick and thin, and I think they went through a couple of different distributors. Originally, it was out through Ireland. which was his label at the time because he was signed to EG, which was done through Island. Anyway, the powers that be gave him carte blanche to do this label. And it was obscure. Look at the weird, obscure label. What is it? I don't know. It's just weird. And each cover was sort of this weird collage that had been blacked out except for a little window. And each cover was the same, except the window was in a different place. And this one, yeah, this is an original of Gavin Breyer's, Sinking of the Titanic. Of course, the B-side is what got famous, Jesus' Blood Never Failed Me Yet, which is a wonderful, wonderful piece of music. Derek Bailey plays guitar on it, by the way. I didn't know that, which probably is the most melodic thing he's ever played in his life. And good for him, which is, you know. So that was now this record didn't sell worth shit when it came out, but after a while it became big. Now the second one was John Adams, who was completely unknown at the time, doing a great piece called American Standard and 2 Christopher Hobbs pieces for reed organs, and a really interesting Gavin Breyer's piece where people are kind of encouraged to get lost. And you'll notice squares in a different place. I hope this is going to work with these damn covers on them. I'm not taking all the covers off. The third one of this series is Discreet Music by Brian Eno. I think anybody who knows Eno knows that this is what this is. Side 1 was basically him discovering what later became known as Frippertronics, I guess. Side 2 is his mutation of the Pachelbel canon, which is actually charming. I really like it. Fourth record is also really interesting. Max Eastley and David Toop. Side 1 is Max Eastley and these weird instruments that he has invented. The hydrophone, the metallophone, the centrophone, and the elastic aerophone. Really cool. Side 2 is David Toop. Now, David Toop is a really interesting guy. He's well known as a writer. And this contains some pretty fucking strange music. There's 2 little, what he considers to be pop songs, where he kind of sings in this little voice. And then there's this long, sort of extended improvisation with bamboo pan trumpets and a really interesting, strange thing. Number 5, and this came out, I think, in America. You can get different pressings of this. Oh, the minister's got a problem at the border. John Cage. They did a lot of John Cage. Robert Wyatt does the voice. Carla Bley does the voice on one. And the other side is Jan Steele. And I don't know much about Jan Steele. It's more... Jan Steele is kind of getting into the Penguin Cafe Orchestra kind of sound. Michael Nyman gets a record all to himself. 1 to 100 and Bell Set number 1. Both really interesting pieces. Then we have the marvelous Penguin Cafe Orchestra record, which was kind of a funny little hit. And it did okay. And this is the original again. Now, by this point, Obscure was flipped over to Polydor, because EG flipped over to Polydor. Number 9. What's going on here? Sorry, what was that? 7, 6? This is number 9. Irma, an opera by Tom Phillips, music by Gavin Breyers. This is about as weird as it got as far as the Avant Garde went. This one I have not listened to more than maybe twice. It's pretty strange. Then we have, this is out of, what's going on here? John White and Gavin Breyers Machine Music. Now, there's a bottle, there's Drinking and Hooting Machine for 5 bottles, Jew's Harp Machine for 4 Jew's harps, Son of Gothic Chord for 2 pianos, a song called Autumn Countdown Machine, and side 2 is The Squirrel and the Rickety Rackety Bridge by Gavin Breyers, which is a very interesting piece for one player of 2 guitars. Now, what he's done here is he's made it for 4 guys playing 2 guitars each, I do believe. And you have Derek Bailey, Fred Frith, Gavin Breyers, and Brian Eno all playing guitars. Interesting. Number 10 was possibly the most beautiful one, Harold Budd's Pavilion of Dreams. This is a really, really, really pretty record. Marion Brown plays alto saxophone on it, which is significant to some. And Michael Nyman plays marimba, John Wright plays marimba. Harold Budd plays Fender Rhodes. And again, this is verging on new age, but not quite. These records are worth a lot of money now. They're worth like 40, 50 bucks each, which is kind of annoying because, well, I've got them all. I don't care. Again, a box set is in order, I do think. So, but all of these were mainstream attempts by major record labels, usually through goading from their artists, like Mr. Eno here. But Deutsche Grammophon and Philips didn't, I don't know who got the ball rolling for them, but they actually provided an outlet for this music where people like me in Victoria, BC, could discover people like Silvanio Bissotti. And for that, I will be forever grateful. Because without this largesse of these horrible scum-sucking corporations, I wouldn't have learned about a lot of really interesting music that I've been obsessed with ever since. So, there you have it. I'm going to dig through, I'm going to go do another video later about, there's some reissue programs going on of this stuff that are a little bit under the surface. You got to go looking for them. But I'll do that in another video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button, and I'll keep doing these. Thanks for watching, and take care of each other. We're getting to the end of the road, I hope. We'll talk to you later.